received all the supreme, sublime understanding of the reality, our source of being, and the true nature of creation itself, and of mankind, I was uplifted in spirit and body, became light as air. At that time, when I was thus elevated within the divine creative power itself, I was indeed almost a divine person myself, experiencing a high degree of the nature of the Father creative power within me, and feeling its own drive and care and concern for all humanity. Therefore, I could later say the truth. Only I know and have seen the Father. In that moment, how I yearned to teach, heal, comfort, uplift, feed, take away the people's pain and misery. I longed to release them from their fear of a mystical, avenging God. When I returned to tell them the truth, how I would emphasize the reality of the Father creative power, perfect love, supplying their every need. All they had to do was ask, seek, knock, and all their needs of whatever kind would be bestowed upon them. How joyously I would tell them the good news that redemption from suffering lay within their grasp if they only took the necessary steps to cleanse their minds and hearts of the twin impulses of manifested being. This should be simple enough, I thought. One only needed understanding and self-control. I have descended towards your vibrations to refer back to my actual state of mind during the time I was in the desert. It will help your own understanding immeasurably if you try to enter my state of consciousness at the time. So many things, such as my work of healing and walking on water, will become clear to you. They will be seen to be a natural consequence of my new understanding of the Father creative power. If you read the Gospels of Matthew and Mark, their records will have new meaning for you. To return to my final hours of enlightenment, there I was in a desert, possessing the clear understanding that man himself, through no fault of his own, creates the barrier to attunement to the Father creative power, and now I was longing to hurry back and teach, heal, comfort, dry the tears of those I so greatly pitied. Yet I was reluctant to leave this hallowed place, where I had been so illumined and transformed in spirit. On the other hand, what a wonderful future lay ahead of me. I would walk through all the cities, towns, villages, and tell everyone I met the good news, the kingdom of heaven, that place where all sickness disappeared and every need was supplied was within them. Because I knew that the Father and I were one, and now that my mind had been cleansed of the old thoughts and ideas, I would direct healing of their illness and disease. I would teach them how to relieve their poverty. When the Father consciousness within me began to dim, and I gradually returned to human consciousness, I became aware of gnawing hunger and also a return of my human condition and thought. My reactions to my 6 weeks' experience began to change. My usual human awareness of me and my desires took over my thoughts. Why, the most amazing and completely unexpected thing has happened to me, I exuded. I have been given knowledge beyond any yet given to any other man. I was jubilant with the realization that at last my doubt and rebellion against the avenging God of the traditional Orthodox Jews was vindicated. I had been right after all. Who would ever suspect that the human mind could be so highly creative that a strongly held thought or desire would actually manifest itself into the visible realm? I realized that Moses must have known something of this, because he had accomplished some strange things when the Israelites were in dire need. He became a leader and changed the course of the Israelites previously enslaved in Egypt. I could return now and free my people from the rigid control of their own teachers. My hunger pains now became intense. It occurred to me that I could turn stones into bread to satisfy my longing for food, because I remembered that the Father creative power worked through my mind, and therefore everything in the universe would be subject to my command. I was about to speak the word which would change stones into bread, but something in me halted me abruptly. It came to me strongly that the Father creative consciousness was perfect protection, nourishment, fulfillment of need, and so the hunger would be taken care of if I asked the Father for relief. I realized that if the little I, the human me in my need, used the creative power for selfish reasons, I would be erecting a barrier between the Father creative consciousness and myself, and everything I had just learned might be well taken away from me. This frightened me, and swiftly I asked the Father creative power for new strength to carry me back to habitation and Nazareth again. I also asked for relief of hunger in the form that would be right for me. Immediately the hunger pain subsided, and I felt a surge of energy flow from my entire body. Thus proved that I had all seen, heard, and understood was reality, and not some vain imagining born of my time in a desert, fasting and alone. My new energy enabled me to make haste over the rough tracks on my way out of the desert. On the way, I met a well-dressed man of sweet and pleasing countenance. He greeted me warmly, expressing concern at seeing my rough, unkempt appearance and loss of condition. Gladly he sat me down on a rock and shared his excellent meat and bread with me. I wondered why he was in such a desolate place and where he had come from. In response to my questioning, he only smiled and seemed not the least surprised when I said I had been in the desert for so many days I had lost count of time. I explained how I was enlightened as to the true nature of the Creator of the world and shown the natural laws of existence. He only smiled and nodded. I am going back to my people to teach them everything I have learned, I said joyously. Why, I will be able to heal them and bring them release from every sickness and trouble. The stranger replied sadly, "It will take many millennia." I was about to rebuke his lack of faith when I realized he was gone. I knew then that a divine messenger had come to succor with good bread and meat, and compassionately gave me warning that I might not find my mission so simple, despite my enthusiasm. I was deflated by his word of warning. My enthusiasm waned. The way to the first village on the road seemed endless. How a change in human thought produces a change of mood. It came to me that I could further prove the truth of all that had been shown by jumping over the edge of a precipice, which would greatly shorten my journey. As I was about to do this, it came to me forcefully that I was trying to prove my time of enlightenment was real. If I required such proof, then I was in a state of doubt, and I would probably kill myself, because I had been shown that at every eventuality I could lift my thoughts up to the Father Creative Consciousness and ask for a solution to every problem. How quickly I forgot the truth. So I prayed, passionately asking forgiveness for being weak enough to indulge my own fantasies and seeking my own way of doing things. Again the answer came in renewed strength and a greater sureness of foot as I scrambled over the rough ground. I found, too, that I was covering long distances so quickly that it seemed that I had stepped outside normal time reckoning, and I was in a lighter dimension where human experience was lifted above its heavy thraldom of exhausting expenditure of energy. Walking was so easy it was now invigorating. I exulted in the fact that I had found the key to more abundant life. A while later, feeling so much at ease, my mind began to wander, and I thought about my meeting with the stranger and the kindness he had shown me. But I also remembered his warning, and again my old nature reasserted itself, and I felt deeply rebellious that he should presume to tell me how my work would go. I decided he knew nothing about my future and set his warning aside. Why, I thought, with my knowledge, I could accomplish things no man has ever done before. Instead of struggling in a difficult life, I could begin to accumulate wealth easily, attract followers wherever I went, and share my knowledge with them to make their lives easier also. I could take away all pain and suffering. As I contemplated the many places I could visit so easily, I felt myself skimming the surface of the ground and rising until I reached the highest peak of a steep mountain overlooking the countryside below. There it was, all laid out before me. I felt my previous enthusiasm return. Why, it would be so simple to round up the people and share all my knowledge with them. I would become powerful, even famous as the man who rescued mankind from all their sickness and troubles. I would gain their admiration and respect and would no longer be remembered as an idle, worthless fellow. With a tremendous shock, all I had been taught so recently, but a few hours ago, returned to mind with great force and clarity. Had I not been taught that the only way I could ever prosper was to abandon my self-will and turn to the Father for assistance in everything I undertook? Then I remembered that creation had its own special purpose to fulfill. The individualizing process had created the pull-push, the give and take in human behavior. Although these human characteristics caused people great anguish in their lives, was it not the anguish which forced them to seek better ways to live in order to find true happiness? I realized that the ills of mankind had their place in the human scheme of existence. Was it right for me to bring privileged information to people in order to nullify the effects of the individualizing process? I realized I had been thinking from the central point of my individuality, the ego, and it was the ego drive which built barriers between mankind and the Father Creative Consciousness. Therefore, my central point of human desiring would have to be conquered if I was to live in perfect harmony with my Father as my sincere intention. And so I continued on my way, pondering what might lie ahead and how I might best overcome the impulses governing my humanhood in order to remain in the flow of Father consciousness, from which I would draw inspiration, guidance, answers to problems, my daily nourishment, daily health, daily protection. In fact, I realized that whilst I remained within this daily flow of Father consciousness, no harm could ever come near me, and my every need would be met. And more importantly, the Father consciousness working through me would do whatever was required for people in dire need of healing and comfort. At all times, I must overcome my rebelliousness against the harsh realities of existence and listen to the inner voice and conform to the higher will of the Father. This higher will was perfect love, directed entirely at promoting my highest good. It would be extremely foolish, I realized, to continue along the path of self-will, which had dictated my behavior to that time. It was then that I was inspired to speak in parables to the people. Those who were ready to receive the knowledge would understand and make good use of it. But as it turned out, even my disciples could not rid themselves sufficiently of Jewish doctrine to enable them to understand either the principle of consciousness or the activity of the divine creative power within creation. Until this time, it has remained a mystery to all except the spiritually enlightened. Even the spiritual words of enlightenment cannot be immediately fully comprehended by the human mind. Therefore, these letters must be read slowly and accompanied by much meditation and prayer to be properly understood. Remember, unless you can become as a child, getting rid of a useless clutter of beliefs, prejudices, resentments, ambitions, and ego drive, with a mind filled with wonder and utmost faith, you will not be able to absorb these pages as you should. To become a child, you must make an effort to shed all past mental conditioning. If you are mentally, emotionally, physically suffering, it is only because whatever have been your most sincere beliefs, they have not been helpful to you. They have not promoted your well-being. It is time to examine your mindset. Are you happy with it? You can make choices, and as you make them, you can call upon the Father to help you make the changes, and the help will surely be given you, providing you do not doubt. I therefore urge you to continue to read and absorb the following pages. I want to impress on the strength of your mindset, which is a sum total of all your conscious and subconscious programming. It is essential you should understand that none of this human mindset has its origin in the spiritual dimension. It is entirely earthly and probably filled with mythical ideas, prejudices, misconceptions, resentment, buried memories of past hurts, and habitual methods of dealing with ups and downs of life. Your human mindset, including any religious ideas or beliefs, determines your world, your relationships, experiences, success, failures, happiness, and misery. It is even responsible for your sickness, disease, and accidents. Nothing happens by chance. Everything is woven out of the inner threads of your personal consciousness, thoughts, expectations, beliefs in life, fate, God. You live in a world of your own making. This is why children raised in the same environment turn out differently. Each one has its own individual mindset constructed according to inherent character traits. If from birth you had no developing mindset, you would be as unconscious as a statue, devoid of feeling, response, and thought. Vacantly, you would stare at the world, and whilst there might be a great deal of activity around you, nothing would impinge on your consciousness, since you would be devoid of reaction. Nothing would make you happy or miserable, even if a bomb exploded in your vicinity. Without a mindset, you have no life, no development, no evil, no good. Your type of mindset determines the quality of your life. This is the very first truth of existence I want you to realize and understand fully. Furthermore, for as long as you live, you carry your mindset with you wherever you go. There is no escaping it, and day after day, it will continue to create for you the type of existence you have experienced in your past. Many people go through their entire lives believing they are unfortunate. They think that other people have been mean, unkind, ugly to them, and have made their lives thoroughly unhappy. They believe that other people quarrel with them and constantly make difficulties whilst they are absolutely innocent of any provocation. On the contrary, other people are not to blame. It is the personal mindset which is attracting to them their negative conditions. Many people shy away from the suggestion that they alone are responsible for their troubles. It is more difficult for some people to face up to their inadequacies than it is for those who have the inner strength and self-confidence to look at themselves fairly and squarely. Sincere prayer draws the Father creative consciousness into the mind, quietly, secretly. It cleanses the human consciousness of all that the seeker no longer feels comfortable with. It is of necessity a very gradual process of inner cleansing and development. Emotional patterns. Your emotional patterns can be as damaging to your overall welfare as your mindset. Your mindset together with your emotional patterns are your creative tools.